Hello. So, this is going to be a very quick setup or kind of video about how I set up my Tyro69, and then I might ramble on about the Tyro69 and my experience with it. I'm not sure, but I'm going to put the meat and potatoes of this right up front. And this is my Tyro. It's running the JESC um, firmware on it, the 48 uh, megahertz firmware, and we're going to take a look at that. The the place you get that is called jflight.net, and look for that in that link in the description. Now, uh, there's a downside. I guess it's a downside. I don't think it's a downside. The guy that did this, you need to research it. He's charging for the software. I think he deserves the fee. It's kind of like a patron thing. So I'd like to see him develop this because I have an affinity for kind of cheap electronics, and anybody that knows me knows that. But it's not too bad. So this is a price that's the $6 that's basically tacked on top of the price of the Tyro. And then, but this is actually the pack that I bought because I had a few ESCs, Bell Hell ESCs that I needed. So you go to jflight.net. If we go to overview here, read all of this. Definitely read into the 48 kilohertz PWM. Here is where you get the JSC configurator. So you're going to download that. You're going to unzip it, and if we go into that directory, we'll see we have an exe application file right there. So in order to use this, right, you've got to plug a battery in. So it's props off. I did want you to see what it looked like with the props on because then I'll talk about the props later. I'll talk about battery and props, the kind of sweet spot. All right, our props are off. We are ready to do this. So we'll grab our cable, turn you around so I can see what I'm doing. Plug you in. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to fire this guy up. Open him up. Now, I got an extra battery here that is at storage voltage. And COM4 popped up. We're going to connect. We're then going to read the setup. So there's a whole thing about having to have an H or an L, and there's a difference in what you get between the two. For the H, you definitely need to pay for the license. And you'll see here that it says activated license and it says with telemetry. It's That's actually two separate things. The with telemetry part, I believe that's the part that you actually need to pay for the license, and you won't get RPM filtering without it. But basically, this is what you're going to use to flash your ESC. So if we hit the flash all button here, we'll see that we've got this drop down. This is my ESC version right here. This is your choice, right? So the second one down, you want the 2.3, you want 48 kilohertz, right? And then you're going to go through the flashing. It's going to flash each one of these at a time. And then you're going to do flash all telemetry. And when you're done, you'll see the JSE version that you have, 2.3. You'll see telemetry also matching 2.3 activated and licensed. And this is where I should bring up that there is a Jazz Maverick open source version of this. I do not know anything about that. Sorry, guys. I don't care, to be honest with you. This is what I went with just because it seemed handy at the time, and I totally get charging for it. I don't really care. The guy does really good updates. So that's what you do. Um, we're going to disconnect from here. So there may or may not have been something. So I did this one night, and I did it late at night. I didn't take notes or anything like that. I believe what I had to do was I had to flash the ESCs first. Then I went and I updated the Betaflight to 4.1. And that update to the Betaflight 4.1, getting your target is really important. But then I had to come back to the JESC and I flashed with telemetry. Now, I don't know if this is because I just got the order incorrect, but there was something weird where if I was on Betaflight 4.1, I was only seeing two ESCs in JSC configurator. Maybe that was just me. Like I said, it was late at night. I don't know what to say, but take that with a grain of salt. We're going to disconnect from here, and now we're going to go into Betaflight, and we'll full screen that guy right here. Go to COM4, and we'll connect. I think we'll connect. We're not going to connect. All right, and I'm not going to edit this. So we're going to disconnect the USB, plug that guy. Oh, and he's plugged in by battery. All right, we're going to disconnect the battery. We're going to disconnect the USB. We're now going to connect the USB. There we go. COM4, we're going to connect. And we're here, little guy. Calibrate, get that right. That always helps. We're going to go to ports just for the hell of it. Um, this is where the stuff is. So once you've got your JESC set up, you're gonna do D-shot. This is my setup, right? If you can try your own stuff, but this is what really works well for me. I'm really impressed with the flight characteristics of it after kind of playing with it. But I'm going with D-shot 300. The bidirectional D-shot required by the ESC firmware, which is the JESC, is what allows you to do the bidirectional D-shot. It's the telemetry part that allows you to do that. The number of magnets is 12. So for the Tyro69 only, there's other ones, but 12. It should be all motors. And then I didn't change idle value or anything. Over here, this is also important. 4 kilohertz and 4 kilohertz for the loops, right? The rest of this is just whatever you want it to be, right? We're only talking about that. So we go into PID tuning, and this is my PID profile settings. I'm not doing anything special other than playing with the sliders. So I've got the stick response gain up, I've got the P&D gain up, and I've got the balance pulled back. In the filter settings, I haven't played with anything down here, and the way it's flying right now, I should make another video of the way it's flying right now, but the way it's flying right now, I don't need to do anything. I did lower this value here. You can actually see processor usage on these things. I'm not going to go into that, but lowering the PID values brought and having it at 4K, 4K, that seemed to be just fine enough. The processor didn't seem to struggle or anything. So, and that's it. That is, I don't know what other questions I could answer. So if you go into motors, right, this is how you verify that everything's working. Right now, down here, you see error at 100%. Everything's all messed up. Nothing's working at all. We've got our props off. We're going to plug in. And we're gonna turn this on. Notice it went to 0. We're gonna raise the RPMs, not too much, but we're gonna raise the RPMs up and bring it down, 0. Bring it up, bring it down, 0. Try an individual motor, up, down, and it's working. That's how you know. If you're getting any error percent here, be wary, right? Something's not set up right. But for this help, but for this quadcopter, that's it. That's all you need to worry about because it's very simple. It's cheap electronics. Um, and I don't know what else I can say, right? We went over the configuration, 300 bidirectional, 12 magnets. Down here, 4K, 4K. You should be able to pause and do anything you want, right? Okay, so that's it. That's all I know. Hopefully, good luck with that. Play with your filter settings. If I'm doing something wrong, or I should be, or you've already lowered filters or taken filters off, let me know. Does it even fly any better? Right now, the biggest change was in flight characteristics was just playing with the, let me connect there. The biggest change in flight characteristics was playing with these sliders right here. I didn't like it over here, over too far, but it seems to be flying when I'm around a turn. It seems to lock in and a little less jerky. So my stick movements, I'm not saying it because I'm not saying I'm a great pilot now or anything, but when I'm doing a slide around a tree, when I'm doing a slide around a pole, I can make that slide a lot tighter. There's a lot less prop wash, and it seems to that I can transition out of the turn just a little bit better. That's all. All right, so I'm going to disconnect from this. And then I'm going to talk about the Tyro. How about that? Do, 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 do. So let me disconnect the battery first here. Disconnect the Tyro itself. So this is the canopy that I came up with. It is nothing special. Um, it's on Thingiverse, of course. Uh, but one of the things that I did here, and I'm sorry about the fuzzy video, but one of the things that I did here was the spacers, right? So the bottom spacers between the frame and the ESC are 3 millimeters. Then the next set of spacers is 4 millimeters, and then the next set of spacers is 5 millimeters. And then this right here pushes down on the original screws. I went ahead and just made a shelf for the stuff underneath the XM Plus here is where the receiver or the transmitter is, and I put a little door on the side. The reason this is nothing really special, the camera just slides into the back and kind of holds in snug. And to be honest with you, the camera is so bad, right? It's a nice day flyer. Don't get me wrong. It works really well for what I'm doing in the backyard. I can see trees, not branches without leaves, but I can see trees and stuff pretty well at a good speed. Um, but that's it. And the reason is because the canopy that comes with it is just junk. The camera is just going to fling out of it. This I wanted my antennas up. I wanted this propped up. I just wanted everything out of the way, and this worked out well for me. There's other canopies out there that you can get printed or print yourself. I suggest you look at them and give them a try. I tried a couple before I just said screw it and put this. I had one version that I did before this, and I'm a lazy guy. If it fits on it and it works, I'll fly it till it breaks. And to be honest with you, the PLA version of this that I flew, I ran that into trees and walls and fences and just banged the whole thing up like crazy. Um, until finally I was doing a trying to do a corkscrew, and I got disoriented, and I hit a brick wall inverted, and that's what took out the PLA finally. So I said, well, I'll do TPU, and I'll slim it down a little bit, and that's what I did here. So what I do with this, what I fly this on is I fly this particular one on these 2S 300 milliamps batteries, and this seems to be a good sweet spot for me. About 3 minutes on average with a hard flight, maybe 4 minutes on a light flight. Um, and the reason for that is because of these motors, right? So these motors are 1104s, and they're supposed to be 8600 kV. And it just seems to me that 8600 kV is really more of a sweet spot for 2S. It's just, I don't know if this board will even run on 1S, but 3S just seems to make the motors, I don't know, whine a little bit more. It doesn't give you any more control, and it really doesn't seem to give you much more speed when I put a 3S battery on this. And I have, only because I'm crazy, I have put this 4S on it, which this 4S right here is a 450, and it's pretty big, and it's too heavy. So this is just, it'll fly, it'll pull, but it's too heavy. There's too much of a pendulum effect or something going on with it in the turns. I don't like it. But the 2S is, for me, it's fast enough, especially for the front yard and the backyard. Um, I like it a lot. Uh, as for the camera, well, let's keep with the drivetrain. So these props that I use on this guy, right? These props are the Emax Avian props, and these are 2-inch props. Um, and they work really well on this setup. I gotta say, um, there's, for me, flying it now with the current tune on it, there's very, I have to force the prop wash really, or I have to make a big mistake in a turn in order for there to be prop wash, and these really seem to pull good. It doesn't seem to be like I need the 2.5. The blades that came with it were absolute junk. I just hated them. I might try them now that I've got the Betaflight tune to see if anything changes, but I doubt it. I tried other uh, biprops, and I didn't like those either. I tried 2.5-inch uh, tri blades. I think the Rushes, Jim Fan Rush, 2.5-inch. Didn't like those either. Didn't it? It sounded like it always had prop wash. That's actually, it may have just been a sound thing, and maybe I should give that a try with this tune. But right now, with this tune, with these, um, man, this thing just, it flies so well. Um, the camera, uh, it's not that good, right? And that's that's the thing. That's the problem with this price range, right? Because if you get a coupon, and I'll in a minute I'll show you where to get a coupon, where to look for coupons on these, so that if you watch this video a month from now, you'll probably still be able to find one. And I'll just leave that. But here's the thing, right? If you wanted to keep kind of the same factor and use one of the other ones that are kind of based on this, you're looking at something like a Run Can Nano 3, and depending, I guess, let's say $15 to $20, right? So now you've just added $15 to $20 to this thing. And the camera is not so bad. It's got a lot of red in it. But I don't seem to mind that. The run cam, to be honest with you, this Nano 3, it's not that big of an improvement over this camera. It's not worth throwing this camera in the trash, in other words, just to get the small boost of improvement that this thing gives you. This is a good camera, and if you need a small camera, this is the camera. I'm just saying that for the cost, right? And I'll get to that in a second, right? Because this is like 20 bucks, right? So then you're like, okay, I think the biggest downfall to this thing is really the VTX, right? Because it's just a 25 watt VTX. You can't fly it around the outside of your house. You can fly it in your backyard, you can fly it in your front yard, but you're not going to be able to get this thing around your house or anything like that. And a lot of times you won't. But once again, if you throw in another 15 to 20 bucks, you can get something like this that's 400 watts, right? So you can bump it up to 200, you can bump it up to 400, and maybe you can fly this in your front and backyard and your neighbor's yard and the park across the street from your porch. You just don't know, right, until you try. And but you're not going to get out of your front yard or your backyard with this VTX. So that's like 40 bucks, right? Yeah. Let's say 40 bucks. You'd have to spend another 40 bucks. And at that point, you're looking at like $100 something, investment into your flight fund. So that's why I stick with this. And then you can go all out. And I'm not saying don't, right? I'm not saying don't go all out, but you can go all out and you can get a different canopy. And there's a video that I'm going to point you to. Um, Albert Kim, where you use a different canopy, you can throw in a really good camera, right? And you'll be able to fly this thing in your front and backyard day and almost night, from dusk to dawn, basically, in a lot of low light conditions if you just throw another 30 bucks at it, right? So that's 70 bucks right there. Well, take this camera out, 50 bucks, let's say, right? And for 10 bucks more and a coupon, you can get a whole nother Tyro and then have spares. Because if you've got one, you've got none. If you've got two, you've got one. Always remember that, guys, boys and girls. And slow is smooth, smooth is fast. These are all important things that you guys should be growing up with. Um, boy, that's about it. But so the motors are really good on 2S, and it'd be nice if you could get this into something lighter. The thing is that the frame, right? The frame is actually pretty light. It's not the greatest frame, but at 2S with these props, it doesn't have to be. You're not going to get vibration through it. Um, with the RPM filtering, you can get away without having to have and that was the thing, right? So you get these Tyros and those rubber spacers that come with them are absolute junk. It's just the absolute worst. None of them, not a single one. I mean, I think you had to put like 8 of them, maybe 12 of them in, 8 of them. I think maybe 8. Yeah, I have no idea. I can't remember. I'm so glad that they're not in there now. But I line them all up by size, from smallest to biggest. I think there were 8 or 12 of them, and not a single one of them was the same size as the one sitting next to it. I was just absolutely flabbergasted. But I was like, I laughed and I said, "Oh, it's cheap. You get what you pay for." And you do. Don't get me wrong. Um, but I kind of laughed at that. But I put it together. The whole thing looked janky. That it was off a little bit and slid off to the side a little bit. It was a mess. So yeah, use real spacers or print some spacers in TPU. It seems to be so light that I don't think being the flight controller being locked down on the frame is any type of a problem, especially with the RPM filtering, right? Because most of the vibration would be coming from these motors. And the motors are are kind of good and kind of bad. Everybody complains about the wires and the big tip is that they come pre-tinned. So don't heat up the end until you stick it into the solder on your ESC. That's the big tip. I cut everything down. I don't know what to say. I don't care, I guess. Um, because I'll splice in new wire if I really need it. But that is one thing. The motors themselves, once they're spinning up and once you get, I mean, can't even say I got 2 packs charging right now. It's a Sunday. I've probably put 10 through today. I put at least 4 through every day, to be honest with you, since we're all on the coronavirus lockdown. I got nothing else to do with my life. But yeah, um, it's just such a fun little machine for the price, and if you can keep that price as cheap as possible, right, then do it. And that's my suggestion. Um, but you can do a lot to up, you can, this is kind of a good platform to start, right? The soldering is horrific, and it's the last thing you want to hand to a beginner, to be honest with you. Um, but if you can get these motor wires on here, you are ready, right? And you should get, if you don't know how to solder, you should get a practice board. These little LED practice boards. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them on Banggood. If you don't know how to solder, you should get those practice boards and learn to solder. Um, but yeah, I've fallen in love with this thing. I've got a few small quadcopters and so far this is the best. It's the best flying one that I've got, and I don't care about. And part of it is I crash it a lot because I don't care because it's cheap. And when I say cheap, right, I mean I could have done these upgrades to it, but I didn't. I just printed some TPU, got some, and these are pretty cheap props considering. Got some cheap props, and I fly it. I bash it into things. Um, it's been great fun. So yeah, I would highly suggest, getting this. It may or may not be the best first quad, that's for sure, but it's cheap and it's fun to play with. Um, and I've probably been talking too much, so I'm gonna stop and have a good night.